May 25th, 2015, I found myself at a position in life where I was divinely inconvenienced in just such a manner that the God of my understanding showed up and he created just a big enough gap between me and the last syringe full of heroin and cocaine that I was about to inject into my arm, to allow me to have a moment of clarity. And for the first time in my life, me, myself, Brandon Novak, was unaccepting of the outcome that I had continuously created for myself. You see, May 25th, 2015, I found myself walking into my 13th inpatient treatment center. I had lost count of outpatients and detoxes. My mother, God bless her soul, she had bought me a plot. People had taken life insurance policies out on me. May 24th, 2015, the day before I walked into, God willing, my last facility, I found myself coming to. After being on life support for 7 days at Mercy Hospital in Baltimore City, the very same hospital that my mother was a nuclear physicist at, on the board of. She had sold 3 homes to financially pay for me to go to 2 different treatment centers. I had been medevac to 4 different hospitals in 4 different states from 4 different overdoses. You see, in the beginning of my alcoholism, my mother, she would get on her knees and she would pray to God, please God, do not let tonight be that night. Please God, for the love of God, please God, do not let tonight be that night that I received that call that my son has succumbed to his addiction. He's overdosed and he's no longer with us. Please God, do not let tonight be that night. May 25th, 2015, I'm a 38-year-old homeless heroin addict who wants to kill himself on a daily basis. I just don't want to hurt myself in the fucking process. I'm terrible at suicide because I keep waking up. I'm at this position in life where I'm so low the curb looks like a skyscraper. My days are spent standing on the corner of Eastern Avenue and Patterson Park in Baltimore City, praying to God that attorney who drives that burgundy Cadillac gets off at 5 p.m. as opposed to 5:30 because he pays me good money to suck my dick. My nights are spent sleeping in a shooting gallery. And my mother, God bless her soul, she now gets on her very same knees and she prays to the very same God. Please God, let tonight be that night. Please God, let tonight be that night that I finally receive that call. Please God, let tonight be the night that I finally receive that call that my son has succumbed to his addiction. He's died as a direct result of an overdose, just so I can know he's safe once and for all. How did I get here? No matter how many times I give this talk, it does not roll off the tongue right. How did I get here? Because I don't know about any of you, but when I sat where you sit, I had goals, I had dreams, I had aspirations, I had ambitions. I was going to be somebody. But more importantly, who I was not going to be was my crack addict father. How did I get here? What my agenda here tonight to do before you beautiful ladies and gentlemen is to share with you my story and give you my message. I will not pretend to understand the pain that you've endured to end up in this seat to listen to me tonight. I will not pretend to understand the road that you traveled that created the appropriate amount of pain for you to land here to listen to me. I will not disrespect you or me like that. What I'm going to do tonight is share with you my story. And this isn't like an educated guess or a hypothesis of what may or may not happen, provided you take note to what I talk about. My story is easy to tell because it's mine. And it's my history that's landed me in this present moment, which I truly see as a gift. I'm going to share with you my experience with a 22-year bout of alcoholism and addiction. And what I would suggest is that if you can find more similarities than differences, it might make sense to pay attention. But if not, that's okay too. Because as you've heard from the most amazing speakers that came before me tonight, that really should have been in my place if you ask me, they shared all their beautiful approaches and techniques in hopes for us all to find this desired outcome in this very fragile field called harm reduction. Where in this field, there's no margin for error. Yet it's impossible to do perfect. So my agenda here tonight is to share with you my message in a form of attraction rather than promotion. So that when I leave, as Stephanie did, as Eric did, as Sam did, as Jimmy did, as Gerald did, if one of you say, as I've said after listening to them, if they can do it, there's no reason why I can't, then the fact of the matter is the terms of your contract will forever change. And this will be the last time you have a fucking ankle monitor around your ankle. This will be the last time you get into a druggy buggy and go back to a sober living house. But see, if you can relate to the way that I'm wired, when I walk into a room and I put my hand up and I say, "Hi, my name is Brandon, I'm an addict, I'm an alcoholic," all that simply means is, and I'm going to really bring this down to the most laymanest of terms so it doesn't go over anyone's head. But when I come in here and I say, "Hi, my name is Brandon, I'm an addict, I'm an alcoholic," all that means is that I'm defiant by nature. I hate authority, and I refuse to conform. Because I don't know about you, but I possess this job. And this job places me in a lot of positions I don't like to be in. And it allows me to feel a lot of feelings I don't like to feel. And that job consists of knowing everything. So thank you, Gerald. Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Sam. Thank you for politely suggesting to me all these amazing tools that I could potentially use to save my life, but I'm going to politely suggest why you should fuck off. Because I know. And the scariest thing about my story is I had done some things in life that by society's standards would equate to success, happiness, and some may even dream of doing what I've done. What I come to find out is May 25th, 2015, walking into my 13th inpatient treatment center. My worldly possessions consisting of 8 scarves, 2 jackets, 3 socks, 1 stick of deodorant, fit into this bag that doubles my pillow, a needle, a spoon, and a restraining order that my mother had served against me to physically be removed from her home. Clothes literally tied on by a shoestring, I came to the realization that what I do know is that I don't have a fucking idea. And my very best thinking, despite the successful things that I'll share with you about shortly, continued to place me in these positions that I didn't believe was a way out. Because see, I believed that it could work for the Steffies. I believed that it worked for the Erics and the Sams. I believed that the Jimmys could do it, but like, I can't. Because I'm internally unique and I'm incapable of grasping reality. Because I'm so disconnected. Right? The abnormal has become the normal. And my disease will continue to tell me things to separate me from the solution, which is connection to other recovering alcoholics, because it would lie to me in my own voice and say that, like, you don't even fucking like me. Sitting in the same room with the same like-minded people, suffering from the same disease. And my alcoholic brain will lie to me in my own voice and always makes me believe the unbelievable and tell me that I don't quite have this disease. That it works for the others, but it can't work for me because, like, you didn't watch your father cut your mother's throat at 8. Right? Your father didn't take you to the strip joint at 7. And when he would go in the back and conduct business, the pretty dancing girls didn't sit you on the stool and pour shots of ginger ale and Coca-Cola out of shot glasses. And as you would do the shots, the women would applaud, and your father would give you that look of approval. Like, you didn't end up in these movies that broke box office records, that allowed and actually promoted your behaviors to be as outlandish as possible, which equated to higher ratings, meaning more in demand I became, the more money I made, just a never-ending cycle of a wash, rinse, repeat, that allowed me to continue to justify and minimize the severity of my alcoholism. Because see, now I do appearances in nightclubs and they say, so Novak, what would you like in your green room on your rider? And I'd say some cocaine and some Xanax, and depending on the venue and the promoter, a little bit of heroin if he had that edgy look to him. Definitely some Percocets. And I would take pictures, I would sign autographs, and at the end of the night I would collect a check from $5,000 to $7,000 to $8,000. But I think before I get to the part to where my walls caved in, it would only make sense for me to bring it back to the beginning to give you a better understanding of what my life looked like. And again, you're going to hear, as I have, if you missed it the first few times I heard it tonight, that the disease of addiction does not discriminate. Right? From Yale or jail, the White House or the outhouse, the results are all the same. 1 out of 3 people will be affected directly or indirectly. And I promise you that the specifics of our stories will absolutely vary. My story is not your story. My story will not be your story. Your story is not my story. Our stories are nothing alike. The specifics of our story are absolutely different. But the end results remain the exact same. I end up in this place where I'm disconnected, disassociated, isolated, homicidal, suicidal, depressed, dark, in this hole, trying to figure out how the fuck I got here. Better yet, do I even believe that I can get out? Born and raised in Baltimore City. Come from a very loving home with a good family. Now, if you would have asked me 30, 60, 2 weeks, 90 days into my sobriety, what my home life looked like, I would have told you that it was the most debilitating thing that no child should ever have to endure. Right, but after having remained sober long enough and finally doing the internal work that was required to achieve those external results that I've always desired, the fact of the matter is I came from a very loving home with a beautiful family that did the best that they could with what they had. And what that looked like for me is this. My mother got her very first job at the age of 15 at Mercy Hospital in Baltimore City, drawing blood for $5 a pop, a phlebotomist, if you will. Literally worked her way up the ladder to become a nuclear physicist on the board of that hospital that I found myself coming to after being on life support for 7 days. So family reunions in my home at the end of my addiction looked like me getting carted in the back of an ambulance after being hit with Narcan, absolutely furious, as they wheel me in, whether it was once a week, twice a week, once every 2 weeks, 8 times in a month, depending on the finances I was working with. The routine trip looked like they would call up to the 3rd floor and say, "Pat, Brandon's back. Pat, he's back. What do you want us to do with him?" She recently retired after 53 years of gainful employment, 2nd longest employer in Mercy Hospital history. My brother wanted to be an attorney his whole life. By the time he passed the bar and he graduated law school, he was literally blinded in student debt. He had no idea what his next move was going to be in order for him to get himself out of the position that he had created for himself. I can relate to that. Today currently resides as a practicing attorney, working in the White House, doing pensions and benefits. I had a father who was around just enough to let me know that he was not around. Very similar to a Jimmy kind of story. He taught me one thing in life, and that was if and when I went to prison, how to conduct myself. Never held a job a day in his life. And he ran with the Hells Angels. He was a rather unsavory kind of fellow, if you will. Along the way in his journey, he acquired the liking of crack cocaine. His body shut down. He's no longer with us. Me, on the other hand, I was blessed with the ability for my sister to put a skateboard in my hand at the age of 7. And that very night, when I went back home, my mother put me to bed and she said, "Brandon, what would you like me to do with this skateboard?" And I said, "I want it in bed with me." She said, "Why?" I said, "Because if I die, this board will go to heaven with me." The moment that board touched my hand, I knew I was going to be a professional skateboarder. There was no reason for a plan B, a trait, an option, or schooling. I'm the kind of alcoholic that if I can believe it, I can see it. I ate it, I breathed it, I slept it, I dreamt it. At 14, I was the first skateboarder ever in the world to be endorsed by Gatorade. They're flying me to Chicago to the Quake Roads building where they made Gatorade at the time. They take me to this big factory with all these different laboratories within the factory where they're running all these tests, and they take me into this one particular office, and in this office there's these 2 treadmills in the middle of the room. And they march me over to the treadmill, shirt off, on the treadmill, connect these EKGs to my chest, and in behind me comes Michael Jordan. And they put him on the treadmill directly next to me, shirt off, EKGs to the chest. And now we're running on these treadmills and they're giving us each Gatorade, studying the different kind of effects it has on multiple sports players. That night followed by us going to his steakhouse. Later on, I'm touring the world with Tony Hawk. I'm designing my pro model skateboard. At a very young age, I had done something that some would equate to success, happiness, maybe even dream of doing. And the reality why I'm being so descriptive and sharing with you what my home life looked like and the goals, dreams, aspirations I possessed as a young child is to let you know that the first time I sniffed that line, the first time I ate that pill, I hit that pipe, I drank that bottle, I didn't have that aha feeling, that euphoria that's produced upon ingesting a drink or a drug, that I said to myself, I've now found the reason for which I will get up out of bed every morning for. As a matter of fact, I don't even recall the first time I hit the pipe, I sniffed the line, I ate the pill, I drank the bottle. I recall the first time I shot the bag of dope, but nonetheless, I don't recall the rest of that stuff. Because, truth be told, skateboarding did for me at a very young age what drugs and alcohol did for me at a later age. Right? You give me that skateboard and put me in a room with the world's prettiest models, I'll not only believe that they've been waiting for me, but that they're dying to marry me. Drugs and alcohol would produce that same delusional narrative for the majority of my life, and I'd laugh at you for laughing at me, because what the fuck's wrong with you for not seeing what I see? I can't tell you about the first time I ingested a drink or a drug because I don't recall it, but what I can tell you about, as sure as the day is long, as this microphone's held in my hand, the very first time someone attempted to stand between me and a drink or a drug. And if you haven't picked up, you're going to realize that I'm very upfront, I'm extremely graphic, and insanely descriptive with my story. As a matter of fact, I keep my past married to my present, because the moment that this alcoholic forgets the unbearable pain that was created as a direct result of that addiction, it's not a matter of if, but when my history repeats itself, as it usually does. And again, this is not a hypothesis, this is not me giving you some educated guesses, this is me telling you about what my 22-year dance with alcoholism and addiction looked like. And you're going to hear that anybody, any person, any place, anything that attempts to stand between me and a drink or a drug must and will go. And I promise you, it is not personal, it's just fucking business. Because you see, I was raised by a loving mother with a really beautiful heart, who taught me how to show kindness, compassion, love, empathy, understanding to my brothers and sisters, which are God's children, right? And that I did until I decided to dance with that devil. And immediately upon that first dance, God, do I love you, but I am ill right now, and please, for the life and love of God, do not get between me and it, because what I'm about to do, I don't want to do. But you see, the disease from which I possess no longer allows me to have the pleasure or privilege of having a say-so, and what's about to happen, it's not personal, it's just business. And what that looked like for me is this. I'm on a tour with a bunch of professional skateboarders, and we're in downtown Atlanta. We would go from city to city, to state, we would do these demos at these different skate shops, and one of the pros on the tour that's the acting team manager at the time is a fellow by the name of Mike Vallely. Mike Vallely catches me with a pocket full of drugs. Short story long, he tells me to get rid of the drugs or I'm kicked off the tour. As any good alcoholic does, I throw the drugs down the sewer, finish the demo, get back to the hotel, meet a young woman at the hotel. She drives me back to said sewer, fish the drugs back out. Immediately, I'm caught with the drugs. I'm now kicked off the tour. Now, you see, this delusional alcoholic brain that I possess would tell me that the skateboarding world needs me, and it cannot go on without me, and I am an asset. And in reality, it does not need me. It goes on quite fine without me, and I'm a liability. But you see, I'm the last person to realize that, because I possess this job that consists of knowing everything. So the following morning, I'm asleep in my mother's house, and she kicks the door open, she throws the phone to my face, I put it to my ear, and it's Tony Hawk. And he said, look, Novak, we have one of two options we could do with you. We could put you into treatment, you could save your life, you can continue to skate for Pal Peralta, travel the world, design your pro model, or you could quit the team. From 7 to 17, I ate it, I breathed it, I slept it, I dreamt it, I had become it. If I were to have died at that young age, I would have been the happiest child to have ever walked this earth. I'm now on the phone with my idol, the equivalent to a 6-year-old talking to Santa Claus. And I don't have a breath of fresh air in my lungs when I say I quit. You see, you have to think about the disconnection from reality that's already taken place, where the abnormals become the normal, and I haven't even had the privilege of walking into treatment center number 1 yet. Absolutely insane. As some time goes on, 2 to 3 months into this newfound freedom that I possess, because see, flights are no longer being booked, tours are no longer being scheduled, video parts are no longer being produced, packages of products are no longer being sent to my house, because in order to achieve such simple things within that world, I have to have conversations with some pretty successful people and have sentences with words that, you know, like being dependable and honest and reliable and saying what I mean and mean what I say. And those things do not help me get one more, so I avoid it like the plague, right? And around 2 months into this freedom I have, my mother and my girlfriend at the time come to me and they said, "Brandon, we have a great idea." I said, "Oh yeah, what's that, Mom?" She said, "We want you to go to treatment." Now, I had just turned it down from Tony Hawk. Why in the fuck do you think I would accept it from my mother? But I think about it for a moment, the disconnection from reality. The abnormals become the normal. At 17 years old, I don't even have an idea of how serious shit's about to get. I said, you know what? That's an amazing idea. A, I have the time. B, I'll report to said treatment center. And I report back to my mother and my girlfriend that I'm not you nut jobs, nor will I ever be. You see, this is just an overreaction at best. Right? They just caught me at a bad time, on a bad way, in a bad day. After all, you're my father. Fuck you. Made it a point to prove I would never become you. Now you want me to go surround myself with you? The unresolved trauma that Jimmy was talking about. I don't know about your life, but mine today is live forward and learn backwards. Right? So everything that I'm sharing with you today is not what I knew then. But having remained sober long enough, it's very easy for me to look back and recognize the synchronicity in each one of life's events that took place that allow me to see that the God of my understanding has been doing so much more for me, so much longer, so much bigger, and so much broader than my feeble mind could ever conceive. So at the ripe young age of 17, I agree, a bag is magically packed, appeared, and I'm in the back seat of her car, and we're on our way to my first treatment center at the ripe young age of 17 in Baltimore City. As quick as they drop me off, they leave. I'm met outside by a very genuine older woman, and she walks up to me and she says, "Sweetheart, are you Mr. Novak?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "Come with me, honey." And she takes me in to this cafeteria. The cafeteria is completely empty, not a soul in sight. She walks me over to a table. She said, "Sit here. Give me a few, I'll be back." Room eerily similar to this. Real bright interrogation style light shining down on me. I'm ill as a research monkey. I'm detoxing off heroin. Room completely empty. Out of nowhere, this older black man walks in. He walks directly up to me. And he says, "White boy, what are you doing here?" I say, "Heroin." He says, "How old are you?" I say, 17. And he says, "Do yourself a favor and don't turn 18 in a place like this." And as quick as he came, he left. He nor I had no idea the significance of that simple conversation was ever going to have on my life. Mind you, I came in here to prove a point why I wasn't going to stay here. I came in here with a closed mind and a closed heart, comparing out, focusing only on the differences, not the similarities. Because you see, I'm still defiant by nature. I hate authority. I refuse to conform. And after all, I'm surrounded by my fathers. Fuck you. You know what I can tell you about that gentleman? where the 4 teeth were placed in his mouth. Because you see, at the time I had all mine. He's black, I'm white. He's 70 to 75, I'm 17. He smokes crack. I successfully do heroin. He's fucking homeless. I live with my mother and my girlfriend. God bless that man. I am so grateful he found the answer for which he's in search of. I mean it in my heart of hearts. You know what I can't tell you about that facility? I can't tell you my therapist's name. I can't tell you about that relapse prevention packet they're shoving down my throat. Those healthy and unhealthy boundaries they're trying to instill in me. Because if I can relate to those things, that means I can relate to being one of you, and I want no part. I successfully complete that 30-day treatment center. I don't turn 18 in a place like that. How dare that old fucking junkie, just like my father, think that he could predict my future? Yet again, another liar. Fuck him. Painting a real clear picture of how I see you. But don't lose me. Because I turned 19, 22, 23, 24, 27, 28, 30, 32, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38 in a jail or a treatment center. Every year I'd sit on whatever bunk, of whatever cell, of whatever jail I happened to be in, or whatever bed of whatever treatment center I happened to be in, and think back to that older gentleman and say, maybe if me, myself, Brandon Novak, would have listened to that man with an open mind and an open heart, I would not continuously find myself in this situation year after year after year after year. Meaning that it was fully self-induced. I had now created or painted this picture for which you view me in. Now, in between all these birthdays, I'm in and out of treatment, I'm in and out of treatment, I'm in and out of treatment, and I'd come in here and I would like loiter with the intent to recover. Right? I would always get a therapist that I believe was dying to marry me. So I always had to make sure that I was her A1 client and show her that I was, too, marriage material. Let her know that she could depend and rely on me. Future fucking bright. So I'd end up in said therapist's office that's dying to marry me, and they'd always suggest things like, okay, Mr. Novak, I'm going to need you to do a handful of things while you're here with us. What do we got? I'm going to need you to go ahead and get a sponsor. Check. I'm going to need you to go ahead and get a home group, a place where people meet regularly and do social activities. Check. I'm going to need you to create a fellowship of like-minded people who are also struggling as you are in hopes to make it through another day clean. So check. I don't know if she got the email. Right? I wasn't the kid that used to show up to class 20 minutes late in fear that you're staring at me. I was the kid that would show up 20 minutes late believing that you've been waiting for me. So everything that she's suggesting that I do is a Monday morning, meet a person, go to a place where there's a bunch of people, find a place where all these people meet and attend regularly. It's fucking what I live for. But without fail, as I'm leaving her office, she said, Mr. Novak, one more thing before you leave. I'm going to need you to experience the 12 steps of whatever fellowship you choose to join. And without fail, my reaction to her action, my counteroffer to her request was always, I'm beginning to sense a theme of over-fucking reaction. Because you see, it's now 2009. It's Christmas Eve. It's like 34 degrees out. I'm in a shooting gallery in West Baltimore. I have a 4X white t-shirt on, a pair of 38 jeans, and some Timberland boots, and I'm huddled in the corner, and my arms are in my shirt's over my knees, and my head's in my shirt, and because it's the only thing I can do to produce heat on this cold Christmas Eve night. How the fuck did I get here? You see, I get here because I sit there with a closed mind and a closed heart, only comparing out, refusing to accept the similarities and paying attention to the differences. Possessing that job that consists of knowing everything. At this point, my mother's a nuclear physicist, my brother's an attorney in the White House, my father dies as a direct result of the disease of addiction. First skateboarder endorsed by Gatorade, doing a commercial with Michael Jordan, touring the world with Tony Hawk. I've done some things in life that one might equate to success. But the reality, the truth of my story is I've now been in 9 inpatient treatment centers. Starting to lose count of outpatients and detox. It's kind of turning into a par for the course deal. I trip and I fall into these movies, Jackass, and these TV shows called Viva La Bad. Movies do insanely successful. Every time they enter the box office, they break records. TV show, nationally successful. But just like in this skateboard or in this Jackass world, the producers, the directors, the Warner Brother executives, they start to say things like, if we book him the flight, will he make the flight? Let's say we book him the flight and he makes the flight, what condition will he be in when he gets here? Fuck it, let's step out on a limb. Let's say we book him the flight and he actually makes the flight. Is the same thing that's going to happen as last time, where we have to kick the bathroom door down and find him unresponsive on the ground with a needle hanging out of his arm. Not a good look for the work world. But again, my alcoholic brain, the one that I possess that always lies to me in my own voice and continues to make me believe the unbelievable, tells me the Jackass world needs me, it cannot go on without me, and I am an asset. In reality, it does not need me, it goes on quite fine without me, and I'm a liability. My paychecks are now being diverted to my second ex-fiance. You see, there's 2 of those because they have a behavioral pattern of attempting to stand between me and heroin. And as much as I fucking love you, don't do this. It's not personal. It's just business. Therefore, there's 2 exes. Why would I go to treatment center number 9? What's number 9 going to teach me that number 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, or 1 is missed? No fool by any means. Pride myself on being an outside-the-box thinker. Come from a very thorough heritage of hard workers with a pretty good perspective on success. And what's number 9 going to teach me that the rest missed? Right? And this is what I will say for anyone sitting in this room who is in recovery or active addiction. And this is a fact, and this is the only time I'll make a statement for all. Not one of us ended up here because we took the short bus to school. Quite the contrary, we end up here because we're too smart for our own fucking good.
That's right.
And if you're anything like me, you land in a seat in a 12-step meeting, in a treatment center, in a psychiatrist's office, in a methadone clinic, in a Suboxone line. You land in this seat that literally has the ability to save your life. And if you're anything like me, you fuck around and think yourself right out of it. Because recovery is one of these weird things that works so well, I stopped doing it. Think about it. The pain that brings me into these rooms of recovery as a direct result of my addiction creates this open-mindedness and willingness for me to follow through from some senior members who suggest to me what I should ultimately do in order to better my position in this thing called life, which is also an acquired taste anyways. And the craziest thing happens. It starts working. The relationships come back, the lovers come back, the job offers come back, the invites come back, the homes come back, the bank accounts reappear, the sleep starts taking place, consistent showers followed by brushing my teeth, using the bed, like all these things that brought me into recovery because there was lack of now happen in abundance. And if you're anything like me, with this new full life that I've been blessed with, now those very same things that created this blessing, a sponsor, a home group, all the suggestions that my future therapist wife gave to me become an inconvenience. This is my story. I don't know what yours is. So I decided I'm not going to treatment center number 9. I too, like Jimmy did, I have a plan. And this plan is sure to work. I'm going to move to Helsinki, Finland. Right? It's across the world. They don't even speak my language. I'm going to go there, I'm going to regroup, I'm going to rebrand, I'm going to reassess, I'm going to reevaluate, I'm going to redo my life, because you see, I no longer like the results that I'm receiving as a direct result of my addiction in Baltimore, Maryland, or Westchester, Pennsylvania. Now you see, at a very young age, my mother used to tell me this thing. She says, show me who you walk with, I'll tell you who you are. And along the way, at one of my many attempts of finding recovery, at one of my many attempts of checking myself into one of my many treatment centers, with one of my many therapists that I always believed were dying to marry me, I always believed that they would tell me that social acceptability equals personal recovery, which is not the case. But you see, my delusional alcoholic brain will create these delusional narratives that support and justify my relapse behaviors when I'm headed in the direction of a drink. So I always thought, as long as the woman was pretty enough and the home was new enough and the account was high enough and the car was new enough, I have to be doing fucking well. But you see, I can't keep a needle out of my arm to save my life. But stick with me. I'm painting this picture for a reason. It correlates, it all connects. Show me who you walk with, I'll tell you who you are. Social acceptability equals personal recovery. I fly from Philadelphia to Helsinki, Finland. I then have a car service take me to the Ritz-Carlton of Helsinki, because what junkie stays in the Ritz-Carlton? I go to the concierge desk, they take my belongings to my room. I then beeline it to the lobby bar. I pass all these men in these expensive suits having these business meetings in different languages, and I belly up to the bar and I order one glass of wine followed by a second. There's 4 glasses to a bottle. I've now graduated to the bottle. I meet a gentleman at the bar. He slides me a piece of paper. I open it, dial the number. I'm now having black tar heroin delivered to me in abundance. I'm in the bathroom doing what I swore I would not do. And the reason why I keep going back to these therapists that I always believe were dying to marry me is not because I'm an egotistical fuck that wants you to think I'm this like suave ladies man. It's because although my intentions were to sweep her off her feet, ultimately it saved my life. But again, my God was doing for me so much bigger and so much broader than my feeble mind could ever conceive. You see, I was so consumed by the mess that I was incapable of seeing the message. And I'm in the bathroom and I'm doing what I do, and I call that phone out and I call that sponsor. And I said, Lex, how did this happen? I was not supposed to do what I was doing in Baltimore or Westchester and Finland. How did this happen? And Lex said to me, he said, well, Novak, if you have a second, I'd like to share with you something. But I know you're a very busy man with a really full itinerary, and these international calls can become quite pricey. And I said, what, Lex? I could see what he was doing. He said, I guess you skimmed over the part in the book when we talked about geographical change not equating to recovery. You see, you can't shake your shadow. You take you with you everywhere you go.
That's right.
I put you in Finland, you shoot dope. I put you in Florida, you shoot dope. I send you to Chicago, you shoot dope. You're on a college campus in DeKalb, you shoot dope. Your loving mother dies, you shoot dope. Your kid's born, you shoot dope. You see, these therapists, they toss around these fancy words like triggers. And don't they understand that my triggers are when my fucking eyelids open? I will justify why any time, place, feeling, or sensation makes sense to get loaded over. I've seen me do it. He said, if you have another second, again, I know you're a busy man, Novak, and I know you have this crazy itinerary, and we've been talking for some time, this international call is going to break your bank. What, Lex? What? He said, I want you to stop what you're doing. He said, I want you to take that thing out of your arm. He said, I want you to take that thing out of your arm, and I want you to lift your head up and stare directly to the mirror in front of your face and tell me what you see. He said, better yet, don't say a goddamn word. I am going to tell you what you see. At this exact moment, you are staring directly into the eyes of your problem. You are your problem. That needle hanging out of your arm is your solution. And for one of the very rare handful of moments in time, you're allowing me to stand between you and your solution. And at this exact second, you feel like a stranger in your own skin, trying to figure out who the fuck let you in, and more importantly, why. I said, you know what, Lex? These international calls are pricey. Your reality and my reality are two different realities. I believe that I've been talking far too long, and this call is way more than I bargained on. So I go out of that bathroom, I go back to the concierge desk, don't even have the pleasure of entering my room. They bring my belongings down. Now on the next flight back to Philadelphia because Finland's the problem. Finland is the problem. My mother's a nuclear physicist. My brother's an attorney in the White House. Father dies as a direct result of the disease of addiction. First skateboarder endorsed by Gatorade. Commercial with Jordan. Touring the world with Tony Hawk. In these movies that break box office records. TV shows wildly successful. Have done some things in life that one might equate to success. Happiness, potentially even dream of doing. The reality is, I've now been in 11 inpatient treatment centers. I've far lost count of outpatients and detoxes. My mother spent 2012, Mother's Day, she went and bought 2 plots. You heard her talk about it. One for me and one for her, because she was in fear that if she died before me, who would take care of her heroin addict son? She sold 3 homes to pay for me to go to 2 different treatment centers. I've been medevaced to 4 different hospitals in 4 different states and 4 different overdoses. Why would I go back to treatment center number 12? You see, I'm constitutionally incapable of getting honest with myself, but more important, others, about the reality of my situation, because all I want is a little bit more attention from my abuser. You see, what I didn't know then that I know now is that the magic that I've been in search of is in the work that I've always avoided. Along my last stay at my last facility, one of the therapists came up to me. He said, Novak, don't take this the wrong way. I love that you're back, but you seem to really procrastinate. And I said, yeah, you know, it seems that way, Jerry. It seems that way. And Jerry said, you know what they say about procrastination, right? And I said, no, Jerry, what do they say? And he said, procrastination is like masturbation. You only fuck yourself. And now, I look back at every one of my attempts trying to find recovery, and I could no longer at this point deny, justify, or minimize the severity of my alcoholism. Right? So I think that it's only fitting that I share with you that at this point in time in my journey, I believe that I was incapable of finding what you all had. Long-term recovery, peace, joy, happiness that came after a bag of dope. But what I didn't know then that I see clear as day now is that each day, each program, each time I attempted to find sobriety, no matter if I AMA'd the facility, if I got loaded in there, if I completed and got high the same day after, they all did exactly what they were supposed to do. You see, they planted a seed. And as any blessing that's ever happened in my life, they take place unbeknownst to me. And I'll go to the grave saying this, thank God, God is God, and I'm not God, because I will fuck that job up. So prior to finding sobriety, I'm at the 11th treatment center mark, and I'm starting to become accountable for my actions. I can no longer justify or deflect the reality of my situation, and it dawns on me in the midst of shooting speedballs that I am the fucking common denominator in my problem. And that maybe if I just get out of my way, I might stand a chance, and that for the better part at this time, 18 years, all I've done is rearrange the furniture on the Titanic. And this is before finding sobriety. Thank you, Gerald. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Eric. Thank you guys for coming up with these amazing concepts that could potentially save my life, but why the fuck should I try again? I've come too far to turn back. It's been proven by my experience that it cannot work for me. So why go to treatment center number 12? Give that bed to someone more deserving. Give that bed to someone who actually may take advantage of it. Because I got one more plan, and this plan is sure to work. I decided I'm going to write a book. Now, I have no high school diploma. I was kicked out of the 11th grade as a direct result of my addiction, go figure. I got my GED later on after my first book was published while incarcerated in the penitentiary. But nonetheless, I'm going to write a book. And I believe that books find people. I don't think that people find books. And along my journey, someone had given me a book that really affected me, and it was called A Million Little Pieces by James Frey. Later on down the road, I decided I'm going to write this book. I pulled that book out. I studied the outline. His book is written in 12 chapters. I, in turn, write mine in 12 chapters. Pen to paper. I don't own a computer. I can pawn them very well, but I miss that whole era of life. Pen to paper, I scratch out 12 chapters. I have a co-author, a very intelligent man with letters in front and behind his name. He turns 12 chapters into 23. I get a literary agent who shops my manuscript around. A whole lot of no's, a couple yeses. We come to an agreement with Kensington Publishers, Citadel Press. I'm now a published author, right? The work can be bought in any national bookstore in the country. I'm now receiving hundreds of thousands of pieces of mail from all over the world of people like you saying, Novak, I read your book. I didn't want my story to get as bad as yours. I have 30 days. People like you, Mom, saying, I read your book. I understand why my son picks the bottle as opposed to having dinner with me on the weekends. It's not that I'm a bad mom. It's that he suffers with the disease of alcoholism. I believe I just wrote the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous or the basic text of Narcotics Anonymous. You have. Creating a picture of disconnection from reality, which kept me sick for a very long time. But what I forgot to share with you beautiful people is that I wrote that book while sniffing endless amounts of cocaine and bottle after bottle of red wine. The night my book's being released in Times Square in New York City, my publishers are there, my manager's there, all these well-to-do people in that literary world have shown up, my family whose dreams I built up one more time only to fucking destroy them shortly are there. They believe their son has done something productive with his life and maybe this will stick. And now you see, looking back, I always wondered why, like every time I stepped in the ring with my opponent, I got beat so bad. Pride myself on being a really intelligent individual, no fool by any means. If I can see it, if I can believe it, I can see it. But like, how do I get beat so bad every time I get in the ring with my opponent, aka addiction? And I'm not talking like, you know, a skinned knee or a bloody lip. I'm talking like teeth pulled out one at a time, skinned slowly, ears sliced, nose chopped, tongue slivered. Like that's the beating I get, and I couldn't understand time after time how I get that ass whooping from my. And what I never could piece together is the reality why is I always underestimated the opponent that I was up against. You see, I never gave it the time, attention, or respect it deserved because I possessed that job that consisted of knowing everything. So every time it saw me, it laid patiently and waited. Come on, boy, we got you one more time. But you see, the night my book's being released at my own addiction memoir book release party, I don't have any money, which means I can't get any dope, and I'm feeling pretty ill. And I looked to my assistant, I said, CJ, I need $20. He said, absolutely not. Kept it moving. Now, I have a buddy of mine with me from Baltimore, and he doesn't feel good either. And all of a sudden they wheel my books in these boxes on this dolly to set up the display case for me to do my autograph signing of my addiction memoirs, of my book release party. And him and I, we take one look at each other. We don't say a word, but we have that conversation of the heart, that language untreated, if you will. In uniform precision, he stands up, I stand up, we go over. I grab 2 boxes of my books. He grabs 2 boxes of my books. We've now just stolen 4 boxes of my addiction memoirs for my own release party, to run to the train station to catch the next train back to Baltimore, to sell, to get more money to buy more dope. How the fuck am I here? You see, I get here because I sit there with a closed mind and a closed heart, comparing out, focusing only on the differences, not the similarities, because like, I get you did what you did, but I won't do what you did. And if you're sitting in this room and you're saying that to yourself, don't miss what I'm about to say. My story was not my story either in the beginning. They say a hard head makes for a soft ass. And I promise you, I have the softest ass in this room. Well, maybe not. Jimmy's up there. But as Stephanie talked about, I got to where I'm at by virtue and product of failure. Death. Destruction, heartbreak, isolation, disconnection, suicidal, homicidal, violation. I simply did process of elimination, but backwards. Failed so long at everything I attempted that finally, when the pain was created as a direct result of my addiction, when it finally became unbearable, because you see, for me, unmanageability for me is like a Monday morning cup of tea. You will only get my attention when the pain becomes unbearable. When my back's against the wall and I am optionless with nowhere to turn or no one to talk to, then you'll get my attention. But that window of opportunity, harm reduction people, it has to be quick, because my window of opportunity is about the same size as a $10 bill. Because all of a sudden I'll get that 10, I'll put that in me, and I'll think that this is just an overreaction at best. That tomorrow's going to be different. I believe that tomorrow's going to be different because I can no longer take this pain. Tomorrow is going to be different. But you see, I wake up tomorrow to repeat yesterday's actions, and I'm stuck in Groundhog Day for 22 fucking years. We sell the books, we shoot the dope, he goes his way, I get on a train back to Philadelphia, go back to my second ex-fiance and my home. At the time I walk up the stairs, a common theme in my story is that locks stop working. You get up the top of the stairs, the lock doesn't work, I kick the door in. When I kicked the door in, the home is completely empty. She had taken our paintings, she had taken our cats, she had taken our furniture, she had taken our clothes, and I found myself in a position that some people in this room might be able to relate to, lying on the floor in a fetal position, crying uncontrollably. And at the exact moment, it dawned on me, this home is now a spitting image of what I have become. This big empty shell of a man, this big empty shell of a house now consoles this big empty shell of a man who's lying on the floor in a fetal position, crying uncontrollably. And guess what the only thing I can think of at that exact moment is? That gentleman from the first treatment center that said, do yourself a favor and don't turn 18 in a place like this. Because yet again, if I just would have took heed to the suggestions he was given, I would not find myself in this position. And that exact moment, my phone went off. And a little over 10 years ago, the police in Baltimore City killed a young black man by the name of Freddie Gray. And when that incident occurred in Baltimore, it turned into the movie The Purge. They were robbing, they were looting, they were shooting, they were stealing, they were burning blocks down, they were burning police cars down. They brought the National Guard to come in and stand on every corner with a machine gun and a tank, and they imposed an 8 o'clock curfew. No one was to go out. My mother lives around 15 blocks from where the incident occurred. And she called me, crying uncontrollably, and she said, Brandon, can you please make sure I don't get killed in these riots? Please come make sure that they don't burn my house down. Please make sure I'm safe. Now, I don't know if you picked up on it, but my mother is the MVP of my story. She's the one that deserves any form of recognition. If justice was due, I'd be dead years ago. I didn't work hard for my seat in my 12-step fellowship. My mother did. Anyone who crossed my path did. Anyone who associated with me worked hard for my seat in a 12-step program. She said, please come make sure I don't die. My mother has loved me when I didn't love myself. She's prayed for me when I didn't pray for myself. She's bathed me when I didn't bathe myself. She's fed me when I didn't feed myself. She has shown up for me when the rest of my family members said, leave him alone. He will hurt you. He will lie to you. He will rob you. Leave him be. Not my mother. In theory, my plan was to hang that phone up, get on the train from Philly, and go back to Baltimore and make sure she was as humanly safe as possible. That's my plan in theory. In reality, my disease said, that's real cute, bitch. That's such a cute plan you've come up with, bitch. Let me show you what's really gonna happen. You'll get on that train, and you'll make it back to Baltimore. And you're gonna walk up into, at the time, your 73-year-old mother's bedroom, and you're gonna physically remove that woman from her bedroom. You're going to commandeer her bedroom. You will leave that bedroom once a day for 3 months. You will live in her bedroom and you will shoot speedball after speedball while chain smoking. Your mother's going to be in fear that while you shoot speedballs and chain smoke in her room, that you're going to fall asleep, drop the cigarette, catch the house on fire. So her next thought is, if she sleeps on the sofa directly next to the front door, she could probably make it out alive. I don't know if you caught what I said in the beginning, but I had goals, I had dreams, I had aspirations, I had ambitions. I was going to be somebody, but more importantly, who I wasn't going to be was my fucking crack addict of a father. I make him look like chump change at this point. I make him look like a walk in the park. Every morning I leave that room, and I gently sneaked down the stairs, and I knew exactly what step to step on because I stepped on the wrong step, and she woke up because it made a creak and said, Brandon, can you make me something to eat? Not right fucking now. Not now. And I get to the bottom, and I would get on all four, and I would army crawl over to her bed, aka the living room sofa, and this hand would grab her purse, and this hand would grab the bell that she's attached to her purse. Because God forbid that bell rings while I'm in mid-lift of her wallet to take her debit card. She says, what are you doing? Don't fucking ask, Mom. And every day without fail, I take the debit card, go to the bodega, I hit the ATM machine for $180. One day coming back, I get to my mother's doorstep, attempt to put the key in the lock stops working. Now, I love my mother. I would never kick her door in. Right? There's layers to this depravity. I have no problem stealing $180 from her, making her sleep on the sofa in fear for her life, and I'm going to catch her house on fire, but God forbid I kick her door in. At this point in my life, I'm living on that like animalistic level that we talk about, where I'm merely living to use and using to live. So I politely knock on the door, and from the back of the house, there's these big glass doors, and I can start to see this big shadow who's overshadowing this little shadow. And the closer they get to the door, I make out the vision. It's my hotshot attorney brother from DC who works in the White House. And he had driven down that day to make my mother physically walk up into her bedroom. Because any mothers in here know that no one wants to watch their son or daughter kill themselves on a layaway plan, one bag, one bottle, one needle, one pipe at a time. Ignorance is bliss to that woman. On this day, my brother walked my mother up into her bedroom, and what they saw when that door opened was like a murder scene. There's blood on the ceilings, there's blood on the walls, there's needles, there's cookers, there's bags. If you can't relate, thank God. But if you can relate, you might want to fuck around and thank God. With that, the closer they get to the door opens, my mother's crying uncontrollably, and at this point, my words hold no more weight. I can no longer deny the severity of my addiction. I can no longer justify my behaviors and blame it on my drug addict father, or the parole officer who just didn't like me, or the faulty piss test that they always give me, right? Like, I had to accept my responsibility, and all I could do was look at my mother, and say, Mom, do you hate me? And she says, sweetheart, I will never hate you, but I will no longer love you to death. You have to go. And And with that, my brother hands me everything that I own in this world. Despite the successful shit I shared with you, the Jordan, the commercial, the Gatorade, the Jackass, the Viva La Band, the autobiography addiction memoir, these book releases in Barnes and Nobles and Times Square, the reality of what my life looks like is I'm a 38-year-old homeless heroin addict standing on the stoop of my mother's place in Baltimore City as my brother hands me everything that I own, which consists of 8 scarves, 2 jackets, 3 socks, a stick of deodorant. Fits into this bag that doubles as my pillow, a needle and a spoon. And with that, a police officer comes around the corner and he said, "Are you Mr. Novak?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "This is for you." I open it up, it's a restraining order. He said, "I promise you, as God is my witness, I promise you, if I catch you back on your mother's premises again, I will not be so kind." I take my 8 scarves, 2 jackets, 3 socks, stick of deodorant, needle, spoon, restraining order. I'm walking up the street. And with that, my phone goes off. Social media, a woman, she said she read my book and saved her life, and I could give a fuck less because I don't want mine right now. She said, "What do you say about an all-exclusive paid trip to Fort Lauderdale?" I said, "That's great. I need some heroin, some cocaine, some Xanax, and some wine." "No problem," she says. Red flag number 1, my book saved her life, but she's going to give me substances that kill mine. Whatever. I do a little bit more research, and I realize she lives in a hotel. That's not a good look. A little bit more research prevails that she's like a lady of the night or a dancer. 2 things I have no problem with. I've seen you become both for $10. You see, this woman has 2 requirements that I must fulfill when I touch down in Fort Lauderdale. She wants to party, and she wants to fuck. And I don't know about you, but when I shoot heroin, I do neither. I sleep. I know that I'm about to wear my welcome out really fast. Pun intended. I don't want to go to Fort Lauderdale. It's hot. It's sandy. I don't know the hustles. I forgot to mention that I'm to see my parole officer tomorrow morning in Pennsylvania. Now you see, my parole officer's name is Matt Pfeiffer. His nickname is Maxim Out Matt. Jimmy, very similar to your guy. Kind of guy you spell your name while you're going back. Now you see, the stipulations of my parole at this point are this. I'm supposed to be in Pennsylvania. I'm not supposed to leave the state of Pennsylvania. I'm supposed to be in his office at 8 a.m. I'm supposed to produce a clean urine. I'm in Baltimore. I'm about to go cop some dope. I'm going to board this red-eye flight to Fort Lauderdale. If I piss into a cup, it'll light up like a Christmas tree. But my delusional alcoholic brain that always lies to me and continues to make me believe the unbelievable says, "Don't worry. Get dressed accordingly, hurry up, get to the airport, catch that red eye at 11 p.m., get to Fort Lauderdale, and you'll make it back in plenty of time by 8 a.m. to produce this clean urine from Mr. Pfeiffer." That's literally impossible. Even if I have a jet at my disposal, I cannot beat his piss test. But nonetheless, I get dressed accordingly, right? Because how you see me, how you view me, has to be how I'm doing. Social acceptability equals personal recovery, so I get dressed accordingly. I put this nice button-up shirt on. I put these pair of dress slacks on. If you overlook the cigarette hole burns. I don't wear underwear at this time. I'm like a homeless heroin addict. And I put these at once point in time nice pair of Brooks Brothers shoes, but I had lost a shoestring along the way, if anyone in here can relate. But before I get to that flight for the red eye to get to Fort Lauderdale, I gotta go cop some things from the boys because I don't want to get sick on this flight. And I go into West Baltimore and I attempt to cop some dope from the boys. The boys see fit to rob me as opposed to serve me. So when they rob me, they rip my front and my back pockets completely out. My dick and my ass are completely exposed. They rip my shirt open. The only button that stays buttoned is this very top button. And I got these shoes on with one shoestring. I'm now roaming the streets of West Baltimore looking like a gay East LA Cholo gangbang. Does not go accordingly to plan, so I hurry up and I get to the airport, right? Now I told you in the beginning, this is where this full circle moment happens, that I was divinely inconvenienced in a way that God showed up and created a big enough gap between me and the last speedball I stuck into my arm to allow me to have that moment of clarity to see what my life really looked like was. And I was unaccepting of it. This is that moment. I get to the airport, time is of the essence, gotta make it back for Mr. Pfeiffer, believe I can complete this mission. And 2 things I've learned in my career is I'll never win an argument with a judge or a TSA airport security agent. What they say goes. Now mind you, I don't want to go to Fort Lauderdale. Everything in my heart of hearts tells me if I board that flight, I won't come back. My heart's beating 10 million miles an hour like I shot 20 kilos of cocaine. I do not want to board this flight, but my disease said, bitch, when I want to ask how you feel, I'll do so. Till then, act accordingly and get in line. And I get in line and I get up to the counter and the woman takes one look at me. She said, Mr. Novak, are you under the influence of anything? And I said, absolutely not. Mind you, I have the same exact outfit on. I only own 8 scarves, 2 jackets, 3 socks, stick a deodorant, needle, spoon, and that restraining order. I said, absolutely not. She said, you will not fly for 3 days. Not the next flight out or tomorrow morning, for Christ's sakes. 3 days. What I didn't know then that I know now is that the God of my understanding dressed up in the form of a TSA airport security agent and did for me what I was incapable of doing and denied me access to a one-way trip to death. I get out of line, I call that same exact sponsor that I only acquired to sweep that therapist off her feet so we could ride off into the sunset happily ever after. And I said, Lex, I'm stranded at BWI Airport and I want to kill myself. He said, no. You'll get on a train. You'll come back to Philly. You people. I was not buying what you were selling. I was not drinking your Kool-Aid. You people who I thought were my father, you're going to leave your cookouts. You're going to leave your loved ones. You're going to leave your families. Memorial Day 2015. You're going to come pick up this hopeless, helpless alcoholic who's been deemed unhelpable and unfixable by society as a whole. You allow me to sleep at your house. You take me to see Mr. Piper the following morning. He allowed me one more chance. Why, I don't know. Today I do. At the time I didn't. He sends me back to the same facility I had been to 4 previous attempts out of my 13 overall. I have the same exact outfit on. My sponsor refused to allow anyone to give me a change of clothes because he's always instilled in me, you never get between an alcoholic and their bottom. You let them feel the repercussions from their actions. So I'm sitting in the same intake chair that I've sat at 4 previous times with the same intake coordinator, and our conversation always looks like this. Okay, Mr. Novak, your insurance will cover you for 90 days. My counteroffer to her offer was always, in theory, 90 days sounds great, but in reality, I'm more of like a 45-day-ish kind of fellow. She'd laugh at me each and every time and say, sweetheart, you have no idea. Anything and everything you put in front of your recovery does not or will not matter because it will go. You see, May 25th, 2015, the terms of my contract were forever changing because I'd finally been demoralized in just such a fashion from drugs and alcohol that I'd been beaten into that state of reasonableness. That for the first time in my life, I sat in the same goddamn chair as before with the same intake coordinator, and when she gave me that offer for the first time in my life, I couldn't come back with a counter offer because I was literally, thank God, beaten speechless by my disease of addiction. I had no more bark in this fight. I know if I said no, it entailed an explanation. I couldn't fucking talk. All I could do was shake my head yes. She said, sweetheart, you're in no condition to do this intake. Get up to detox. I'll see you when you wrap up. Take my 8 scarves, 2 jackets, 3 socks, stick a deodorant, needle, spoon, restraining order, my gay East LA Cholo gangbanging ass, and I'm walking up to detox. And there's this 22-year-old named Brian. And Brian's a tech, a behavioral health tech at the facility, and he looks at me and said, Mr. Novak, you're back. And I said, aren't you a fucking genius, Brian? You don't miss a beat, do you, man? He said, Mr. Novak, I regret to inform you, but your clothes are not rehab-oriented. You need some underwear, you need some sweatpants, you need some slides, and I had heard you weird, cult-like sober people saying shit like a grateful addict will never use again, and a grateful alcoholic will never drink again, and it didn't make sense until it made sense. And the day that it made sense for a hard-headed alcoholic such as myself was when I found myself standing in the basement of my 13th inpatient treatment center, a Catholic charity that cost me $2 to get into. I'm a 38-year-old homeless heroin addict who just came to after being on life support the day before. I'm standing in this room where there's no electricity, and he takes me to these donations boxes, and I'm holding his phone as he's fumbling through these boxes, and he said, we're going to find you some used underwear. And for the first time in my life, I found myself praying to myself, because God forbid you heard what I was thinking. Please, God, let him find me some underwear. He doesn't find me the underwear, but what he finds me is a pair of size 40 women's sweatpants with no drawstring, a woman's tank top, and a pair of size 13 Jesus sandals. Now, I don't know how alert or attentive any of you are, but I'm not a woman and I do not wear a size 13. But two things were taking place at that exact moment that I thoroughly believed was the worst day of my fucking life. That was carving out to be the best experience I've had to date, and I've had some pretty rad experiences in this thing called life. When he handed me the women's clothes and the shoes did not fit, at that exact moment I came to the reality that what I do know is that I don't know. And despite that successful shit I share with you, the very best I come up with is standing in the basement where there's no electricity of some fucking weird building that cost me $2 to get into with some 22-year-old boy who's overly happy and handing me women's clothes, and I'm excited about this. And the second thing that took place, as soon as those clothes hit my hand, I was overcome with a sense of willingness unlike a human has ever or yet produced in my life. What I didn't know then, I know now, that exact moment I met the God of my understanding face to face as a gift of desperation. My pain was becoming my purpose, again, all unbeknownst to me, as every miracle in my life takes place. Take the women's clothes, shoes that do not fit, get upstairs, get a shower, get that Baltimore City smell off me, never so excited to put women's clothing on in my life. I successfully completed that 90-day treatment center. Some things that they taught me in that facility was that if I changed my perception, I could change my world. And that one day, my defects, the very same thing that was killing me, could become my asset. 4 months into my process of sobriety, my mother, the woman who bought me a plow, the woman who served me with a restraining order, the woman who prayed for my death, the woman who sold 3 homes to pay for me to go to 2 different treatment centers, the woman who took life insurance policies on me, she called me and she said, "Brandon, I hate when you come back to visit me." I said, "Why?" She said, "Because I get so sad when you leave." I had been on parole and probation from 18 to 38. Never a free day in between. It just tailed me from state to state to state. 2 months shy of my 2-year anniversary, I signed my release papers. I'm literally a free man that can go anywhere with anybody, anytime I like. You see, I no longer live in that self-induced prison that consists of a 4-block radius that cost me $10 to get out of one bag, one bottle, one needle, one pipe at a time. I decided I was going to get my 2-year medallion abroad. I flew to Paris to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting and picked up my 2-year medallion. On my 3rd-year anniversary, I bought a fucking home. On my 4th-year anniversary, I decided I was going to go to Amsterdam to an AA meeting and pick up my 4-year medallion. Most people do not equate Amsterdam and recovery. But as a direct result of the spiritual experience I've received from working the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, I am a free man that can go anywhere with anybody, anytime I like, and I am no longer tempted by a drink or a drug at this moment. Why is that? Because I finally accepted in my heart of hearts that I suffer with a disease called alcoholism, not alcoholism. And I cannot stay sober on yesterday's sobriety. My sobriety has a shelf life of 24 hours. So if I do what I did yesterday, today I have a chance of seeing tomorrow. After that 90-day inpatient treatment center stay, I then lived in a recovery house for 1 year because my sponsor, Lex, the guy who I acquired to fucking sweep the therapist off her feet to marry her, who clearly is long gone in my rearview mirror, suggested that I do that because he did. He had 13 years at the time. I wasn't trying to reinvent the wheel. I wasn't trying to solve world hunger. Recognize that my behaviors create specific outcomes that are not desirable to me, but more importantly, my family. I followed suit. I lived in that sober living house for 1 year. On my 5th year anniversary, I vowed to that point when I found myself that I was financially capable, I was going to recreate the same house I lived in, just in a different place. Literally on my 5th year, to date, I opened up my very first men's sober living house in Wilmington, Delaware, called Novak's house. That was 1 house with 10 beds. Fast forward to today, I have 7 houses with 70 beds. And the mission, the why behind my statement is that I travel the nation throwing events, generous donors, beneficiaries, the kind Stephanie talked about that enjoy stroking a check here and there, throw money into a scholarship fund because I refuse to let price be a deterrent as to why someone can't continue on their journey of recovery in an adequate, clean place after completion of an inpatient program.
Yeah.
A year and a half ago, I was then afforded the ability and luxury of opening up my own treatment center called Redemption Addiction Treatment Center. God saw fit to give me the license to open that facility on 420. Unfortunately, and I mean this in my heart of hearts, unfortunately I've outgrown that space, and I'm now in the process of acquiring another facility or building to open up another facility. I truly wish that Novak's house didn't exist. I wish that redemptions were no more. I wish that I needed to find a new source of income. I really fucking do. May 25th, 2024, I was blessed with the ability to celebrate 9 years of continuous sobriety.
Hey.
What I've learned along my journey is that the disease of addiction is not a death sentence. And your history does not have to dictate your future, but it can absolutely guide and direct it. Sobriety today has given me everything drugs and alcohol ever fucking promised me. I'm going to close with this story. There's this father, and he works from home. And this father's watching his child. Father completely swamped with all this paperwork, trying to think of a way to distract his kid to finish the task at hand. Kid keeps coming up to the dad, "Dad, take me out to play, take me out to play." Father's like, "Fuck, how do I distract him?" Father trying to find a way to distract his son so he can finish the task at hand. He walks into his office, and in his office, on his desk, is a big picture of a puzzle of a world map. And the father says to himself, "I got it." He completely dismantles the picture of the puzzle of the world map. He throws it on the floor in hundreds of pieces. He goes to the son and he says, "Son, when you put that picture of the puzzle of the world map back together, I'll take you out to play." Father leaves that office, surely thinking he bought 4 days, no questions asked. Not even 2 hours later, that kid comes back, "Dad, I did it. Dad, I did it." Dad's thinking to himself, "Impossible." Dad walks back into his office, as sure as the day is long, the picture of the puzzle of the map is put back together. Father, in complete disbelief, said, "Son, how did you do it? Son, how did you do it?" Son looked at Dad and laughed. "Dad, it was simple. Dad, it was simple. Remember I said this thing's so easy, we'll miss it. Dad, it was simple. You see, Dad, on the back of the picture of the puzzle of the world map was a picture of a man. I put the man back together, the world fell back in place. Together we stand, divided I don't stand a fucking chance." Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time.
Come on now. Come on. Let's give him another round.